Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Super Lunch Bros podcast, episode number 35. Yes, 35. It's just me solo today, so not going to be a lot of back and forth, obviously, except for in my own head and talking to myself. Probably should seek therapy for that. Anyway, we just had UFC 256 go down with the main event being Davison Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno. Great fight. It was fantastic. There's already talk of it being the best flyweight fight in history, the best flyweight title fight in history. That might be because it was actually competitive, and we haven't seen a truly competitive flyweight title fight in a very long time. The big reason for that was it was dominated from the inception of the weight class in the UFC by Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. So, do I think Davison? We can cut to that in a second, but was a good fight. It was fantastic. Brandon Moreno looked amazing. I don't know who counted him out before this fight, but there were rumblings of people with people saying that, oh, did he really deserve this title? And I don't know if he can keep up with Figueiredo and handle the power. Nonsense. All of it nonsense. He was fantastic. He looked great. I actually thought he won the fight. I had him taking rounds 2, 3, and 4. But I guess the two judges, it was ruled a majority draw. Two of the judges had it 47-47. There was a point deduction in round 3 due to Figueiredo nailing Moreno in the crotch really freaking hard. Again, there were some people saying like, oh, I don't think a point deduction was warranted there because there was no warning beforehand. But if you look at the actual rule book and the verbiage that is used, one of the qualifying factors for a point deduction or the referee's call on whether or not it should be a point deduction is the damage done by the illegal strike. Can the fighter effectively continue, and how much damage did that do to him? And it was pretty bad, to the point where Brandon Moreno was almost throwing up. He was dry heaving on the ground. It's pretty bad. There was also an eye poke, I believe, in the second round. Figueiredo was on the bottom. Moreno took him down, and he was gouging his eyes. By the way, that happened again in the fifth round too, and Moreno was complaining about it, and nobody talked about it. So this goes back to what we said last week. Figueiredo is clearly the champion. I'm not going to take anything away from him. I still think they were fighting for third best in the world because the two people who held this title no longer fight in the UFC, and they left unceremoniously with the belt. So, well, that's not true. Demetrius Johnson lost the belt in a very controversial decision to Henry Cejudo, and then Henry Cejudo never officially lost the belt, right? So, because of that, they are effectively fighting for third place or at best second place in the world right now. So, because of that, it puts a little bit of a stain on this division, and not so much like these fighters couldn't be the best in the world. Like, they absolutely could be, and I think that both of them could compete with Henry Cejudo and Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. They could even beat either one of those guys. That's absolutely a possibility, but without seeing it, we don't know. It's already been said before. We've talked about this multiple times in the months leading up to this, due to the multiple times that Figueiredo has fought for the title. It's very similar to the John Jones situation at light heavyweight. When he left the division without losing to anybody and losing his belt, everybody was clamoring for him to come back, and nobody ever felt that DC was the champion. And this is kind of the same situation. Now, the UFC doesn't want to talk about Demetrius Johnson because he doesn't fight in the UFC anymore. And they don't want to mention Henry Cejudo because, the real reason Henry Cejudo isn't fighting anymore is because of pay. He doesn't feel like he was being paid enough to fight in the UFC, therefore he left. Before he left, he did go up and get the belt at 135 as well. So it's not like, he was some washed up fighter or some guy who couldn't compete in the divisions anymore. Like, he left in his prime, and because of that, we really don't see like a lot of draw to this. Now, because of this fight, we might get a fun rematch between these two, being a draw, that is. So we make it a fun rematch, and it will draw more eyes to this division. That'll be fantastic. It was a great fight. I can't wait to see them fight again. It was so good. Couple takeaways. Brandon Moreno's cardio and toughness were on point as usual. He looked fantastic. His boxing was crisp. He was throwing the jab out. Figueiredo has a much stronger jab, but Moreno ate away at Figueiredo's cardio the entire time, and he looked great. His takedowns were there when he wanted them. He couldn't really control Figueiredo on the ground, but that's okay. He didn't need to. I felt that he did enough to get the decision. It was close. It's not a robbery here, so it's okay. The decision was okay. The fight was fantastic. And if they want to run it back in 3 months to let these guys recover, also great. I'm super excited. As far as Figueiredo goes, his first attempt at the title, he misses weight. Wins the fight, doesn't get the title. Why? Because he missed weight. Okay. Second attempt, he beats Joseph Benavidez, and he just knocks him out, and nobody cared. Nobody watched. Nobody gave a crap. Third attempt, I mean, he won outright. There's no questions about it. Nobody cared. His third attempt was his first title defense. I forget. No, was it Alex Perez? Anyway, he fought him, and the fight was back and forth, and then Figueiredo pulls guard and gets a guillotine to end the fight early. Great. We're talking like this is, the setup to be a champion and a dominant one like Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson was. Well, I'll talk about that in a second. This one, clearly Moreno was on par, if not better, than Figueiredo. And Figueiredo fought recklessly. And I don't mean recklessly with his shots and not defending himself. I mean recklessly meaning not controlling his tools in the octagon. Kicked him in the nuts really hard. Poked him from the bottom multiple times. And was raking his eyes. Like, that's not fucking cool. You can't do that shit. So even if he had won this fight, there's still controversy to be talked about here. And because of that, like, he just doesn't feel like the champ. Like, it was a great fight. It's just there's no definitive statement that he's the champion right now to me. Like, he's never really put his stamp on the division. As dominant as he's looked at times, he's also beatable. And yes, parity can breed for some very fun fights, and that's cool. But to me, he's still, if he comes out and smokes Moreno in the next one, all right. And there's no controversy about it, fantastic. Now we have a real division champion, and we can carry on from there. And this fight will help bring eyes to the division because it was so interesting, and that's generally what happens when you have two equally skilled fighters and talented fighters going at it. So if you want that, if you want constant parity, and I sometimes I do, like, that does make it more interesting. You do, like, that's what you got here. That's what you got here. The problem with Demetrius Johnson, why nobody tuned in, it was the same thing with Anderson Silva. Nobody could beat him. Nobody could touch him. I mean, he was pulling off shit like that. He threw a guy mid-air, goes for an armbar, and finishes him. He finished a guy with, Takeo Mizugaki. I think he finished him with, 2 seconds left in a 25-minute fight. Like, he was always searching for the finish, always putting himself in advantageous positions, and just outclassing the opponents every time, so much so that it became boring because nobody thought he was going to lose. And then Henry Cejudo comes up, loses the first time. There's some other fights in between, and then Henry Cejudo comes up again, gets kicked in the leg, goes limp, and then there's, oh my god, and then DC calling that second fight like, oh, these Granby rolls, that's technically a takedown. Like, yes, in wrestling, but in MMA, the rules state that a takedown is worth nothing if you don't do anything with it. So if I push a guy to the ground and that's the only thing I do, and that's the deciding factor, that can be counted. But if you push a guy to the ground, he gets up and punches me, or if I push a guy to the ground, he gets up immediately and punches me in the face or kicks me in the leg twice, he won that exchange. There's no back and forth there. Okay, like, that takedowns with no damage done and no real control time, those count for nothing. And I don't want to harp on DJ's. I still think DJ is probably one of the best mixed martial artists of all time, him or GSP. Anyway, I don't want to sound like a negative Nancy here. Like, there was a great fight, fantastic. The guys were swinging leather like so freaking hard, which is fun at flyweight. Was it more interesting than a lot of Demetrius Johnson's fights? Absolutely, because like I said, there was parity, and they were both going for the like swinging hard, trying to get the finish. So I'm totally down for them to run this back. It was great. I want to see it again. And hopefully we get a definitive winner next time, and there's no controversy. Oh, boy. This one's hard. So the co-main event, we had Tony Ferguson fighting Charles Oliveira. For those of you who listen to our fighter rankings, and I kind of sounded a little down on Charles Oliveira, I wasn't putting him down as far as skill goes. It's just his record. Yes, he had 7 wins in a row, but none of them were against like tough opponents. And every time he had stepped up to that next level, that next tier of opponent, he got set back. This is the first time where he's really stepped up outside the Kevin Lee fight, which I've already said my piece on. I think Kevin Lee's hit or miss. That guy's like a 50-50 fighter. I don't know what to make of his career at this point. I mean, if he changes it up and puts like 3 wins together, I could be totally wrong here. But at the point when Charles Oliveira fought him, with, that being the very first COVID era fight, Kevin Lee just looked like he usually does. He comes out flat and then has no cardio. Anyway, this fight, Tony Ferguson did not look like himself. So I don't think Charles Oliveira gets the recognition from this fight that he really should. If this fight had occurred 2 years ago or even a year ago, and he was the first guy to beat Tony Ferguson in a dominating fashion, I think he gets a big bump in the rankings. I still think he's going to. This is an 8-fight win streak, and he's looked fantastic. I think Charles Oliveira would have provided, if Khabib decides to come back, or, hindsight, we look back and say Charles Oliveira would have provided some very interesting challenges against Tony Ferguson. Or not Tony Ferguson, Khabib. So, and that's the other thing to take away from this is, if this Tony Ferguson fought Khabib, I think it would have looked almost identical, with Tony Ferguson not being able to get off his back and Khabib just doing whatever he wanted. And that's what we kind of had here. Tony Ferguson's tough as fucking nails, and his arm was fully extended at the end of that first round, and there's no reason for him to have continued, really. No human reason, but he's the freaking boogeyman. So, Charles Oliveira looks fantastic. The 155 logjam just got thicker, so I don't know where he goes. It's hard to tell. Let's look at the rankings one more time. Just put him definitively where he should go from here. All right, so we have Justin Gaethje obviously coming off that loss to Khabib for the title, so maybe we don't give him the immediate title shot. I've never been a fan of that. I don't think he warrants it right now. You got Dustin Poirier fighting Conor McGregor. I've said my piece on that already. I think that the winner of that fight gets the next title shot, and because of that, maybe Charles Oliveira gets one more win here, or maybe he gets the next title shot. That's a possibility. Maybe he fights Rafael dos Anjos. It's hard to, because Rafael dos Anjos is coming off that great win against Paul Felder, and Rafael is ranked 6. It's hard to knock him too. So him versus, and I don't want to say that Charles Oliveira absolutely needs another win to get a title shot. I think he deserves it, and in any other non-clog division like this, I think he gets it. I just think that because you have Poirier fighting McGregor for the unofficial belt, I don't know if they're putting a belt on the line. I don't think they are. Maybe they are. I don't know. Because of that, and then Khabib's nebulous, retirement, he might not get the title shot. I don't think Tony Ferguson would have got the title shot either, to be honest with you. So I don't think Charles Oliveira is going to get the title shot off that win, barring injuries and COVID stuff. So I don't know. We'll probably end up with Gaethje fighting for the title just because of the name recognition. Maybe even Oliveira versus Gaethje would be fun. That'd be a fantastic fight. I'm totally down for that as well. Nothing but violence there. A great win for Oliveira. He looks fantastic. This was the best win of his career up to this point, as far as name, challenge, ranking, all that stuff. He looked so good. This didn't look like Tony Ferguson from a year ago. Didn't even look like Tony Ferguson from the Gagey fight. So maybe he took a little bit more damage in that. Well, not that we noticed. Obviously, we saw the amount of damage he took. This maybe some lingering effects from that fight. So we'll see. We'll see how things go from here. I'm really interested in seeing Oliveira against the top tier of the division now. No more top 15 fighters. He's top five or bust at this point. You know, he should be ranked in the top 5 after that. Dan Hooker should be bounced out. So I would just exchange. Yeah, I would bump him up and then bump Rafael and Dan Hooker down. So Oliveira would be ranked 5 because Conor McGregor's not getting bumped from 4, even though he hasn't fought in forever. Whatever. Do I think Conor McGregor deserves the ranking of 4 at lightweight since he hasn't fought at lightweight since he lost to Nurmagomedov? No. But it is what it is. It's his name. That's how you do. All right, so we had a great strawweight fight. Mackenzie Dern finally showing off a little bit more cardio, improved striking. She looked much, much smoother in this fight than she has in the past against Vima. Janko, I forget. I don't know how to pronounce her last name, and I'm usually pretty good at that. Jandy Hoba or Jandy. Yeah, I'm not even going to try. Against Vima. Or Verna. Oh, good grief. Anyway, it's a great fight. It was a great fight. It was a close one. I watched it. I only watched it once, and I probably give it to Mackenzie Dern, as I feel like she had more control, and I felt like damage was pretty even. So I'd probably give it to Dern in that case. If Verna had done a little bit more damage, you know, and busted up her face a little bit more, I think that would have put her over and given her the decision win. I was kind of expecting it to be a split decision and not necessarily a unanimous one. I figured there would be one dissenting judge there at least. But yeah, Mackenzie Dern looks good. I don't know if she's ready for the top 10. Like, that's going to be rough for her. She needs to clean up her striking and work on her transitions a little bit more, or her standing to ground transitions a little bit before I feel like she challenges anybody. And I don't even want to talk about a title shot yet. Strawweights are so freaking good and scrappy. You know, I mean, seeing her fight. I mean, she could fight Tisha Torres. Tisha got the win. She's ranked 10, or she was ranked 10 before this weekend. Mackenzie Dern's ranked 11. That could be fun if they're not going to try and run the Angela Hill Tisha Torres fight back, or not run it back to try it again because of Angela Hill falling off because of COVID. That could be pretty. That could be fun. That's a good test because Tisha's very good on her feet. She doesn't necessarily have knockout power, but the barrage that she puts on and the output that she has is really going to test Dern. And if Dern can handle that and get her to the ground, because Torres is insanely strong, then I fully expect that. To be a good fight and very like a really good tell for Mackenzie Dern and her future in the division, immediate future that is. Oh boy, this one was weird. Kevin Holland. I mean, I don't know if I've really sang his praises necessarily, but I have been talking about him quite a bit. Every time he's out there, he's looked fantastic, and he got this win against Souza from the ground, and he's only the second fighter in history to get a knockout from his back. He was talking shit the entire time. Jacare was trying to get out of that position. He just couldn't do it, and holy moly, like, Holland's for real at middleweight, and I mean, we'll see what happens, but holy crap, he's fun to watch. That guy is fun to watch. Like, love him or hate him, like, he goes out there and he performs. And then the first fight on the main card was Junior Dos Santos fighting Cyril Gane. It was weird. Dos Santos had his moments. Obviously, he's still good. The heavyweight division, obviously, classically, everybody ages very well there. So there's a good chance that, you know, he's not done necessarily. But there's also the possibility that, you know, he's too gun shy now and he's not going to be able to fight anymore. It's not sad watching him fight because he's still with it and he still speaks well. He doesn't have that notorious taking too many punches, like that punch drunk talk and slurring his words. He's still very cognizant when he's speaking. He's still he's very understandable. So anyway, Cyril Gane looks really good. He has very good striking. It'd be interesting to see when people challenge him on the takedowns. He's great kicks. He's in great shape. He's a big heavyweight who moves very well. He's not a big, chubby dude. He's in good shape. He looks like a real athlete, which is important, I think, in the heavyweight division right now. We have a lot of the top 10 are guys who are extremely skilled, have very good skill, very specific skill sets, and they're just all around a lot better than they have been in the past, and they're not just sloppy guys going in there swinging really hard. Obviously, there's still that. It's heavyweight, so that can happen any night. But as of right now, the heavyweight division is looking pretty good. So we'll see where he falls in after this. Junior Dos Santos, he was ranked number 7 before this weekend, and Gane was 14. So I wouldn't be surprised if Gane stepped into the top 10. And after that, Shamil Abdurakhimov, Augusto Sakai would be a good fight. Alexei Oleinik. I mean, that's a fun fight because, he could put a stop to your hype train at any time. I don't want to see him fighting Alistair Overeem or Alexander Volkov right now, but, I mean, if he wants to fight above number 7, it doesn't have a lot of options, like Derek Lewis, Rosenstruck. They're all options for him now. You beat the number 7 guy, somebody as famous as Junior Dos Santos, someone with a history like Junior Dos Santos. You don't have room to go back down now unless, we have some weird circumstances or, him and his management team decide that, like, it's not the time for them right now. But I don't think that's the case. I think he's going to go challenge one of those guys in the top 8, top 7. And he looks really good. And against a striker, I think it'll be really fun to see how his chin holds up and to see how other people's chins and legs hold up, especially with the way this guy kicks. So that'll be fun. I'm interested to see him going forward. Just to touch on the main card versus the prelims. Main card wasn't bad, but especially with the main event, right? The main event can save your card regardless. You can have dog shit, boring fights, all go into decisions, which we didn't have here. But, right, we're talking about the extremes here. If we have that, and then you have a fight like we did with Figueiredo versus Moreno, you could still consider it a good pay-per-view. It was good. It over-delivered, right? Under-promise, over-delivered, and that's the best kind of thing you can have. Yeah, that's the best thing you can have. Like, you can have, like, high expectations, and then they get exceeded, and that's fantastic. But this one I had very low expectations, and they were far succeeded. Like, this was way better than I ever could expect it from a card that, like, the main event, or the main card. So let's talk about the prelims. I thought the prelims were better than the main event. And because they're free, everybody gets to enjoy them. Relatively free. ESPN Plus. I don't know if this one was simulcast on ESPN2 or ESPN main, but I watch it on Plus, so it doesn't matter. So, my boy, Killer Cub Swanson, man, he looked good. I mean, he was getting beat up. Like, his leg was getting toasted by Pineda. Like, real bad. Those leg kicks were, like, debilitating. You could see Cub starting to, like, move real slow and limping on that leg a little bit, and he's still just, like, and he got caught up in that leg lock, which is scary because he's coming off an ACL tear, lots of rehab. God, he looked fantastic. It was so exciting. I jumped out of my chair watching his fight. Holy crap, was that fun. Getting that knockdown at the end of the first round, and then in the second round, squirming out of that takedown in the first round too. Like, it wasn't really harped on because it wasn't a big event necessarily, but when there was that little scramble and then he ended up on bottom and then he, like, scooted his way up and, like, slinked out of it. Holy crap, was that good. And he gets out there and puts Pineda on his ass, and then in the second round, he's coming out in the karate stance, putting his right leg forward, which wasn't the damaged one. His left leg was damaged. So he's not giving Pineda the weak leg to kick at. And obviously, when he did switch stances and his left leg got hit again, but holy crap, did he fucking crack him. God, that was exciting. Holy shit, Cub. He is now, I think, tied for second most finishes in featherweight history in the UFC, WEC, and he is number 3, tied for number 3 in not finishes. Sorry, he's second, tied for second in most wins in featherweight history for UFC WEC, and he is tied for third for most finishes in WEC UFC history. So what a freaking career he has had. Like, if you remember 6 or 7 years ago, coming over from the WEC, he was basically promised a title shot against Aldo. And there was some injuries that happened, and things went awry, and he ended up coming back and fighting Frankie Edgar. And Frankie Edgar just, took him down and demolished him for, I think it was only a 3-round fight. And if I remember correctly, Frankie Edgar set the record for latest finish, and then that was beaten like almost immediately by Demetrius Johnson against Takeo Mizugaki. But anyway, so, and he's had this like up and down career since then. He's had some of the best, like that Doo-Ho Choi fight. Holy crap, I still go back and watch that. Man, that was so much fun. I mean, that just came up on the timeline on Twitter because it happened a couple years ago. And like, that was so much fun to watch. Cub Swanson brings it every freaking time. He still swings for the fences. He's still crazy out there. He's still got that wild, unique style. He's fun to watch. He's still got precision. He's still with it. And he was tiny compared to Pineda and still put it on him and knocked his ass out. Way to go, Cub. Fantastic win. Woo! God, that was so much fucking fun. God dang. Oh, man. Yeah, I've been a huge Cub Swanson fan ever since he was at the WEC. He's so much fun to watch. He's such a unique fighter. And I love the fact that he's got kids, and he's married, and he's got 4 kids, and he's just, I think, 3 or 4 kids now, and he's, really grown up. And I don't mean that in like a diminutive way, or I'm trying to say like, oh, finally he grew up and he was just a kid before. I just mean that like he's moved on to a different part in his life, and yet he still brings it like this, and he's still fucking crazy. He hasn't changed and become more conservative in the way he fights, or become more traditional or anything like that. Nope. I mean, we didn't see any wheel kicks from him, but like the fight didn't kind of didn't go long enough, and he didn't need to, and he wasn't like in that range. And he, dude, oh my God, so good. Awesome. Good job, Cub Swanson. Holy crap. So much fun. Like, I'm going to go back and watch this fight probably like 6 or 7 more times. So much fun to watch. Hanato Moicano versus Rafael Fiziev. Yeah. Moicano hits hard, and he rocked Rafael. And then, but Rafael's, dude, his kicks are lightning fast, and he'll throw like 2 in a row, like 2 high kicks in a row, which is already unique. But then they come so fast, and he's got so much power behind him, and his hips get into him every time. Whew, God, that guy's scary on the feet. And Moicano was cracking him too. He kept him at distance because he's a taller, lankier fighter, and he's got slick boxing with great straight punches, and he kept him at distance. But Rafael was just like, fuck it, and just knocked him, ended up knocking him out. They were talking about it like, well, Moicano's playing with fire. Was that a little bit fortuitous? Yes. I mean, what other, like, they were talking about, oh, well, he should go for takedowns. I mean, he was having success on the feet. Like, everybody's harping on him for trying to get takedowns. Like, he's trying to touch him up, and I think he went for a takedown and trying to make it a little scrappy. I don't think it ever got into that, like, that depth of the fight. It never went there, so it never came up. Moicano's, he's still an excellent fighter, and I'm interested now, especially at lightweight. Here we go again, another contender, or what looks like another contender, in Rafael. So let's see how this goes. I've said that a lot, but there's like this card surprised me. There's a lot of implications for this now. A lot of future fights and interesting young fighters, or younger in their career, younger in their UFC career fighters coming up, making these divisions more interesting, jam-packed. It's going to be so much freaking fun. We had Gavin Tucker fighting Billy Quarantillo. I mean, this is a decent fight to watch. It was fun. I think looking back on it now, because of the rest of the fights that happened, it's a little lackluster. So, I mean, Gavin Tucker looked good. His cardio held up. I don't know much about him. He's 13-1, and Billy Quarantillo has like really good cardio. So it's one of those things where you're looking at that, and his like Tucker kept up with the cardio, so we'll see how this shakes out. I want to see him have a couple more fights outside the rankings before we start throwing him to like an actual challenging for the top 15 in the featherweight division, especially with all these cuts coming down. Like, I guess people are fighting for their jobs more than they were before. I don't know. I don't put a lot of stock in that. I think this is kind of a normal thing. We had Tisha Torres fighting Sam Hughes. This was a short notice fight for Sam. She came in. This is her UFC debut. She stepped up on short notice. She looked fine. She didn't look like she was overwhelmed by the UFC or the UFC appearance. It just seemed that Tisha was too much for her. And when she went back to her corner after the first round, she complained about her eye, and then they called the fight. Nothing wrong with that. Tisha looks really good. She was letting go a lot more in this fight. I think it's because of the skill differential. She was able to really let go with her strikes and put those barrages together and really swing for the fences a little bit and try to get that finish, which she is notoriously not done in the UFC. Not necessarily not going for the finish. She just doesn't have the power, which not a lot of people do at strawweight, So it'll be. I'd like I said, I'd like to see maybe she fights Mackenzie Dern now, or if they really want to bring Angela Hill in because it was such a short fight, and I don't know how bad the cut was for Tisha. Maybe they fight in like a month or a month and a half. Sometime January, February, they could do this again and or set this fight up again. Angela Hill versus Tisha Torres. That Tisha Torres is going to be a mess for Angela Hill. Like, they're both really good strikers. Tisha has great cardio, and if Hill can't put her out, it's going to be a rough one. I think it's going to be one of those fights, and I think that's what I called before this happened, before the fight fell out, that it was going to be one of those fights where it's going to go the distance, and Angela is going to be really upset because it's going to be a split decision not going in her favor again. And I still think that's going to be the case, if not an outright unanimous decision not in her favor. Not that I don't think Hill can win. I think she has more power, and with the amount of progress and advancements she's made in the short time she's been in the UFC and in her short MMA experience, she can absolutely come out there looking way better than she did in her last fight and smoke Tisha or, outpoint her, outskill her. So it'll be interesting to see if they try to put that fight together again, or they just scrap it and then give them two different fighters moving forward. Like I said, can't forget Chase Hooper. Holy shit, Chase Hooper just turned 21. Famous for the Skittles comment, because when he was, I think he made his UFC debut when he was 19. He makes the Skittles comment after the fight when he asked, like, what do you want to do? He's like, I just want some Skittles. So in this fight, first two rounds, Peter Barrett was smoking him. That's okay. I've been using that word too much. He was putting it on him. Hooper was hanging in there, but clearly was behind in each striking exchange, striking skill set, the takedowns. Like, he had his Hooper had his moments where he would land a couple shots, not a couple shots. It would be usually just one shot, and then like if it went to the ground, there was some, moments where Hooper looked like he had the advantage, but it never really led to anything. And then in the third round, he comes out swinging. Hooper does. There's just moments where he just looked like he's getting picked apart on the feet again, and he goes for an Imanari roll, which there's only a couple guys in the UFC who really go for this kind of stuff. You have Ryan Hall, Chase Hooper now, and of course Tony Ferguson. People don't use them that much. They're a little bit risky, especially if you don't, you're not very practiced in them. But apparently, after the fight, Chase Hooper said he was training with Ryan Hall, and it really helped him. He did it. He did it earlier in the fight. Nothing really came of it. I mean, he was, putting Barrett. He made Barrett think about that stuff. So like, you end up in this position where, you don't really feel like your legs are safe. But it didn't seem to really matter because Peter was still dominating him on the feet. Just outclassing him. In the third round, Hooper goes for that Imanari roll again, catches a leg. He's a little low on the leg. They get tangled up. Barrett's holding on. He's going 2-on-1. He's holding that leg close to him, and he's doing pretty good at keeping his leg out of danger. But he was still staying on the ground with him, and I don't think he had a really good exit strategy. I don't know how much they practiced this before this fight, but it seemed like he was at a loss, not necessarily skill-wise, but practice-wise. Like, he didn't have the muscle memory built in for him to automatically escape. He didn't have those built-in escape patterns in his head. So he was being coached through the process, and you could hear them screaming, and he was doing pretty good. And Chase was landing these shots because Peter was 100% defense. So Chase was able to land a couple a decent straight punches and some clubbing palm strikes and clubbing fists. And then Peter was putting his head down and letting him hit the top of his head. It wasn't too much damage, but it made him uncomfortable, clearly. And then Hooper adjusts for the inverted heel hook, puts the leg on the other side, gets deeper onto the leg, higher onto the leg. And within 10 seconds, 15 seconds, it happened really fast, cranks on it and gets the finish. In the third round of a fight that he was definitely losing, he's down 2 rounds and he needs a finish, and he's not a striker, he's not a knockout artist. He's only got one path to victory, classically, based off of what we've seen. Obviously there's always the Hail Mary heavy shot. Like, anybody can knock anybody out on any given night. It can happen, right? But generally speaking, we don't expect that, and that's probably not a path to victory he was exploring. He knew that and his coaches knew that he needed to get a submission to win this fight. And he did it. Holy shit, did he do it. That was so exciting. And what a way to open up the fight night. That was so much fun to watch, and this kid is something else. That being said, I'd like to temper everyone's excitement. He gets picked apart on the feet. He is 21 years old, and he is going to take a ton of damage. He doesn't move his head off the center line. He stands straight up in the air. He's 6'1". So I'm guessing in his previous MMA experience before he made it to the UFC, a lot of that's the reason why he still holds his head up high. Like, we see it in the heavyweight division, especially with these guys who are like 6'7" and 7 foot tall, like Steven Struve. They never really do a lot of head movement because they're used to just backing up, and guys can't reach them. Well, in the UFC, these guys have had enough experience with taller guys that they can make adjustments and get to you. And that's going to be a problem for Chase, especially with the way that the UFC, he's also a lighter fighter. He's a featherweight right now, and he hasn't grown into his body, so he might end up at, lightweight at some point. He is 6'1". But we've seen it before where these phenoms come in, look great, and he's not even that. Right, he's interesting to watch, and he's a great submission. He's tough. He's very tough, which can also be a problem. But he's not coming in knocking people out like some of the phenoms in the past. I.e., a la like Robbie Lawler way back in the past, Vitor Belfort, stuff like that. But everybody needs to temper their excitement and maybe still consider having him go back down to not the regional circuit, right? But maybe not the Contender Series. This is the problem with winning in the UFC is, what are you supposed to do? Leave the UFC? Leave the money? No. But unless the UFC is going to try and really develop him and give him respectable competition that is at his skill level right now, it's just hard because he's fighting guys like Alex Caceres who just tune him up. But there are moments where you're like, oh, Hooper could get the win here. Or he could just take a ton of damage and be burnt out by the time he's 23. Never hitting his physical prime. Never getting to the point in the UFC where his skills and his physical prowess all match up and you end up with this monster fighter in the lighter weight classes, either staying at featherweight or moving up to lightweight. He's going to just take so much damage. I mean, look what happened with Rory. Rory McDonald had the same thing. He was the next big thing. He was the phenom, the next phenom. He was taken over after GSP, trained at TriStar, all that stuff. He just burnt out, man. He just took so much damage. And I understand that he also changed his life and, became very religious and changed who he was as a person. nothing wrong with that, but clearly he had taken way too much damage. Right? We could be entering the same scenario here where Hooper gets these scrappy wins, pulls these things not out of his ass. Like, he was searching for it. This wasn't like a Hail Mary submission. He set it up. He went for the Imanari roll early enough in the round that he had time to work, put Barrett in a compromised position, outworked him on the ground enough to get the submission victory. So this kid is extremely good at his craft. But he also is going to take a ton of damage if he keeps moving up the featherweight rankings. You're going to have killers who aren't going to play that game, aren't going to let him take him down, aren't going to play the Imanari game. Like, this is not Ryan Hall we're talking about here. I mean, he could be. That's the thing. It's like, given another 5 years of experience, we could have a taller, lankier Ryan Hall with better striking or something like that. You know, that's a possibility here. But as of right now, what we have is a really raw prospect with a lot of MMA experience, but very raw in his striking ability, his takedown ability, and his transition from stand-up to the ground. And he's going to get tuned up and take a lot of damage and maybe be bounced out of the UFC way before his time. So I'd like to see people pump the brakes on him. Like, maybe his management... Like, I don't think Peter was out of his league. So if they keep this kind of thing up where he's fighting people like this and constantly improving... I mean, he rose to the challenge and he got the victory. So what are you supposed to do? Shit on him because he got the win, but he didn't look great in the first 2 rounds? No. But temper your excitement. Keep fighting people at this skill level. Maybe slightly better than him to challenge him and have him rise to the skill level. But he was so far behind in those first 2 rounds that if he doesn't get a win here, I think it might have been better for him career-wise if they don't do this right. So I'm really excited for him, his future. I'm really excited for him in the UFC, and I want to see him fight more challenging opponents, but I also don't want to see him take a lot of damage and be burnt out by it as a 24-year-old. Like, that's not what I want to see. So, I mean, we even saw with Aaron Pico, who was a knockout artist in Bellator. The dude came in, again, another phenom, knocking people out. Then he gets in wars, and he gets knocked out, knocks out a guy, gets knocked out. Wait, the dude's going to lose his chin. I mean, Hooper has a great chin. We've seen him get cracked quite a few times. I mean, how many times are you going to do that before you lose your chin? And you're 23. You haven't even developed your skill set fully or your body yet, and you're already chinny. Let's give him some more time to develop before we start throwing him to the wolves. All right. So, what else do we got? So next week we have Stephen Thompson fighting Jeff Neal. I'm very excited for this. I haven't seen Stephen Thompson fight in a very long time. Let's see. Just going off my mind here. I believe he fought. I think he fought after he fought Pettis. Now, I don't remember. I remember the fight, but I can't remember who he fought, which is terrible. Let's just look it up so we're not crazy here. Vicente Luque, right? So he gets that knockout loss to Anthony Pettis. That freak. It's not a freak knockout, but it kind of was. You know, Anthony Pettis does hit hard, but he's a lightweight, and he came up at 170 because he didn't want to cut weight, and he's in this weird part of his career where he's kind of like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and that kind of stuff, and he knocks out Stephen Thompson. Stephen Thompson's career kind of takes a hit because of that. And then nobody really talks about it, but that was in March of 2019. In November, Stephen Thompson comes out. Wonderboy comes out and smokes Vicente Luque. Just demolishes him over 3 rounds. It was a great fight, too. There was some back and forth. But Thompson put Luque on his ass over and over again. Looking fantastic. And nobody wants to talk about him like in the title picture. Why? Why not? Are we just like over his style? Are we over him? Do we think he's done? He's an older fighter. Let's give him another shot here. Like, he took the champ the distance twice. at the time. And this was when Tyron Woodley was at his peak and the unbeatable monster that was taking everybody down and blah, 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 blah. And Stephen Thompson took him the distance. A draw the first time and a squeaker boring fight in the second one. And I don't put that boringness on Thompson. Like, he was the one moving forward. Woodley does this thing where he stands against the fence. Go back and look at the footage. He does it every single fight. Anyway, so Stephen Thompson also beat Jorge Masvidal before. I think him versus Leon Edwards would be fun. But Stephen Thompson's ranked number 5. Okay? And he's fighting a guy, oh my goodness, who's ranked number 11. Why? Vicente Luque's ranked 10, and he destroyed him last year. So I think this is one of those fights where nobody wants to fight him because Thompson's a hard puzzle to solve. He's a really challenging fighter, and nobody is talking about him constantly as a contender. So you would lose a lot of stock, and your value would go down. And if you do lose, and then if you do win, like, it's probably not going to be super interesting, or you could. But I think people aren't scared of him as a fighter so much as they are scared of the prospect of fighting him and squeaking out a boring victory or getting outpointed or knocked out by him. Like, I think fear of a fighter and fear, like, people are afraid of Francis Ngannou. Okay, people are afraid of him. I don't think people are afraid of Stephen Thompson. I think they're afraid of the negative career implications of fighting him. So Jeff Neal is looking for a fight. Thompson agrees. We're good to go. I haven't seen Neal fight in a while, and I'd have to go back and watch. And it's hard to know what Thompson's going to look like. I mean, I wouldn't I don't bet on fights. I'm going to be rooting for Thompson because I love his fight style. He's at the tail end of his career, and I still think he deserves at least one more title shot. If he gets the wins, like, not just on his name alone. I'd like to see him get this win and then possibly another one and challenge for the title. That would be fun. I want to see him get at least one more shot before he retires. And he's such a good guy. He does breakdowns on his own channel on YouTube. They're fantastic. He teaches kids, like, he teaches you can go watch him on YouTube, and he breaks down skill sets and teaches you, he gives you training tips, like all kinds of training techniques, and even like the timing, like an actual workout program, like a training program. He'll break down bits and pieces of it for you on YouTube. It's fantastic to watch. He even does fight breakdowns of other people's fights and can tell you, like, I think his breakdowns rival that of Luke Thomas. Luke Thomas is more in depth, and I think he does it more of a court style where he's presenting his argument, and I think it's more complete and a little bit better than the way Stephen Thompson does it. But because of Stephen Thompson's, like, experience with striking, it comes more fluidly to him, and it rivals it. I still think Luke Thomas does some of the best breakdowns other than, like, Robin Black, but Robin Black does, like, these 2-minute breakdowns. I think Luke Thomas does the best breakdowns of MMA right now. But Thompson's fun. Like, that's what I'm saying, is, like, he has all of these things going for him. It's not like he's just going to fall off the face of the map when he's done. That being said, before he gets carried away with all these things, I'd like to see him get one more title shot. So him versus Jeff Neal, super fun. The implications, I don't know where you go from here. You got Damian Maia, I think, is looking for one more fight. Tyron Woodley's shot, I'm done with. Like, I think he's done. Still got Jorge Masvidal ranked number 4. Okay, Leon Edwards is still looking for a fight. Oh, he's back in the rankings, so somehow. I don't know if these are up to date. I mean, he's number 3. Got Gilbert Burns, hopefully challenging for the title. You got Colby Covington waiting for the title shot, or maybe fighting Jorge Masvidal. So if Stephen Thompson gets a win here, yes, it's against the number 11 ranked opponent, but I feel that he can get a victory. Neil Magny's in the mix. Nobody's really talking about him, but he is quietly racking up wins again. You got Michael Chiesa still in the mix there too. Yeah, I mean, I'd say one more win after this. Maybe Leon Edwards has such a rough go of it. Maybe Stephen Thompson versus Colby Covington would be fun. They haven't fought before, and I think it would be an interesting fight, especially with someone as wholesome as Stephen Thompson. Like, how is Colby Covington going to talk shit about him? That would be an interesting lead up to that fight. Like, how can you attack someone who's like a Christian who is, like I said, wholesome, doesn't even swear. He's the nicest. he'll punch you in the face and then like be like, oh hey, come on, get back up, and like he'll smile and say thank you as he knocks you out. Like he's just one of the true nice guys in MMA, and it'd be fun to see that build up. Like, how is Colby, especially because after the election we haven't seen Colby talk a lot of shit, so it's going to be interesting to see what his character becomes. If he even I'm talking myself into it. That'd be so much fun to watch that build up, seeing Colby trying to dig anything out of at Stephen Thompson. And then, of course, if Colby were to say anything negative, like, what is Stephen Thompson going to do? We'd just be like, he has his opinions. He's not going to talk shit back. He's just going to be super respectful and go in there and fight. So, and I think that would be an interesting matchup, especially with Colby's cardio and wrestling ability. It would be a good test, because if Stephen Thompson can beat Colby Covington, that's a good indicator for him versus Kamaru Usman. Obviously, they have different styles and different skill sets, but is a good lead up to beating Kamaru Usman. I think if you can beat Colby Covington, it's a good sign that you are ready for the test of Kamaru Usman. I still think Colby Covington is like on par with Kamaru as far as the welterweights go. I don't think he's necessarily better. I don't think he was really, maybe depending on how that fifth round with them could have gone, maybe he gets the decision and becomes the welterweight champion. So I think, like I said, he's on par. I don't think he's far and away the best, and I don't think Usman is far and away the best right now. I think Gilbert Burns has what it takes to beat him as well, so we'll see how that goes. Cool. Yeah, I'm very excited for this fight. I love watching Wonderboy fight. It's so much fun. Okay, we also said this last week. What the hell? This is a fight night. Oh, real quick, if you've made it, obviously this is halfway through the video or near the end, I'm just going to throw it in here because of reasons. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like hearing my voice. If you're listening to this on Spotify, Podbean, or wherever you get your podcast, we also have a YouTube version of this so you can see my face. And then if you are watching this on YouTube, but you're sick of seeing my face, or you want to listen to it on the go and you don't want to pay for YouTube Premium or YouTube Red, whatever the hell they're calling it now, YouTube TV, you can listen to this wherever you get your podcast at. So again, thank you. Like, subscribe, comment, all that crap. Please, 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 please. It's super helpful. Recommend this to your friends. If you think that they're into MMA and you like what you like listening to us talk and you like what we're doing here, then that would be really appreciative. I would it's the best way for this to grow would be for you to recommend us to one of your friends who is really into MMA. All right. Anyway. All right. So we have Stephen Thompson versus Jeff Neal. Then the co-main event is Jose Aldo fighting Marlon Vera. What the hell? This is a 3-round fight. Why? Why? Cheeto is looking to he's looking to make a run at the title, and you've got Jose Aldo, who for whatever reason has been given 1,000 title shots. I don't care. Anyway, so you got Jose Aldo with all of the name recognition in the world, still not washed. He looks fantastic. So I mean, it's going to be if Marlon Vera can go out there and just dismantle Jose Aldo, that's a good indicator that Vera is the real deal. If Jose Aldo, they go back and forth, still a good indicator. If Jose Aldo goes out there and gets a win, it doesn't really tell us much, because is Marlon Vera that's not that good, or is Jose Aldo still that good and everybody that has beaten Jose Aldo is that much better? So it's not a great indicator of his career career projection from here. So it's hard to know if Marlon Vera can't get the victory. But if he does get the victory, it's great for him, and I see him being able to move into that discussion, because he's already looking at who's above him right now. Okay, so he just cracked the top. He's in the top 15 right now. So Jose Aldo's 7. There's plenty of challenging fights for him to go after at bantamweight. Yeah, when is Aljamain Sterling going to fight frickin' Peter Yan? The hell? All right, that's going to be a fun fight, though. Both guys swing and bring a lot of heat, so that should be really fun. Got Michel Pereira, who is absolutely insane. He's always fun to watch. I've said this before. I'm not a fan of his fight style, because I don't feel that, it's not for me. That kind of playing around and doing all that crap, it's not for me, and I understand that people do like that. So if you do, this is not an indictment on what you like. Everybody likes what they like. It's not my thing. But that being said, he's not in boring fights. He brings it, and he comes in there and he does crazy shit. I'd prefer if he did more of that fighting than dancing and doing stupid things. But hey, it is what it is. So it should be fun regardless. Someone's going to get knocked out. Something crazy is going to happen. It's Michel Pereira. He's fighting Kalen Williams. Fun stuff. And then you have Marlon Rice fighting Rob Font. What the... Okay, Marlon Rice, a title challenger, I mean, he on any given night, I still think he could be the champ. I think he has diminished quite a bit since his first fight in the UFC, but it doesn't mean that he can't put you out. He still hits incredibly hard, but I think people are starting to figure out how to approach Marlon Rice, and that's pressure him, make him uncomfortable. Not everybody can do this, by the way, because you have to go through that crucible. But if you're able to, and you're able to push and pressure him, you can make him uncomfortable, and he doesn't look so good after that. He gasses, and he gets in his own head, and doesn't look so great. It's still going to be a fun fight. Rob Font hits hard. Marlon Rice hits hard. It should be fun. Martian Tarbora versus Greg Hardy. Greg Hardy's fighting again. I've said this a lot, but the great matchmaking, it's a great test for Greg Hardy. If Greg Hardy can get past Martian Tarbora, Tarbora is like really good. He's a very skilled heavyweight. And if Greg Hardy can do something in this fight to put Tarbora out or off his game, especially because it's only 3 rounds, I mean, how can you shit on this guy anymore? Like Martian Tarbora was putting it on frickin' what's his face? Oh my goodness, now why can't I think of his name? Derek Lewis. He was putting it on him forever and then got caught, right? As so many have. But this guy's like the real deal, and if Greg Hardy can beat someone like that in a convincing fashion, I mean, what are you going to say? I've said this before, I haven't seen anything about his fighting style that necessarily puts a stamp, like watching him fight, I'm like, oh, that's the Greg Hardy we know, or that's the Greg Hardy fighting style. It seems more like like I said this before, he's just a very athletic big guy, and he's able to outwork his opponents. And if he can do that to someone of Martian's skill set and experience level, I mean, that's legit. That's legit. I mean, he can do that at the highest level. I mean, we saw him fight Volkov, and he hung in there with him. So it's not that he's totally outclassed by these guys. Like, his athletic ability and improvements fight over fight have kept him in these fights, and I'm really excited for him now. I really am. I love watching him fight. I was very skeptical when he first came in, but he's taken it extremely seriously and put everything he has into MMA. So, great matchmaking. Jillian Robertson versus Talia Santos. Whatever. Anthony Pettis fighting Alex Moreno. Alex Moreno, I think they call him the Great White Shark or whatever. He hits hard, and he's more of a traditional fighter. He's got a fun story about losing a ton of weight getting MMA because he was really overweight and all that stuff. He's a very, like I said, though, he's a very traditional fighter, and that's a kind of person classically that Pettis should be able to pick apart. So this is more of a telling fight of where Pettis is in his career than how good Alex Moreno is. If Pettis comes out there and he looks in good shape and his skills are still there and Alex is still able to put it on him, can't take anything away from him. Maybe that does show us that Alex is ready for a step up in competition again. But this is at welterweight. This is not at lightweight. This is not Anthony Pettis' championship weight. We'll see. I like watching Anthony Pettis fight. I just think that for whatever reason it is, maybe it's the damage over time, the impact of the moment, the weight cuts, stuff outside the octagon, the lifestyle. I mean, he trains at Rufus Sport in Wisconsin. Like, whatever it is, maybe he needs a change. Like, all these things, right? He just doesn't look like himself anymore, and he hasn't for quite some time. I mean, he's got the win over Cowboy, which was... I don't think he won that fight, but he went back and forth with a diminished Cowboy. So, like I said, we'll see where he's at after this fight. All right, let's see what we got on the prelims. Wow, there's a lot of fights here. You got Bilal Muhammad against Diego Lima. Holy shit, awesome fight. Bilal is so good. That's gonna be fireworks. Love it. Shajara Eubanks against Pani Kianzad. I probably butchered that one. That'll be fun. Carl Roberson against Dolce Langayumba. Oh my goodness, is this the guy who knocked him out with that weird kick? I don't remember now. That should be fun. They both hit hard. Duran Win. Oh my god, that's gonna be a hard hitting. It's supposed to be heavyweight. I don't know now. Ayman Zahabi. Nope. Nobody else of note. Okay. So that's all the fights coming up this weekend, December 19th. This is the last fight, the last scheduled fight for 2020. After this, we'll do probably a 2020 retrospective as far as the UFC goes. Obviously, we'll cover this, and yeah, I hope everybody is still doing awesome. I know things aren't getting much better, especially in the U.S. I'm really hoping all of this election stuff calms down soon. I want life to go back to some kind of normalcy. I hope that the quarantines and all these things get figured out by actual intelligent people instead of fear-mongering assholes. Either way, I'm not even picking a side. I just want intelligent people to get together and come up with an actual plan that isn't going to take the economy or kill millions of people. I want everything to go back to there's no such thing as normal, but I would prefer it if everybody didn't fucking hate each other. That's all I want. I don't think I'm asking for too much, but 2020 has been kind of a shit show. Luckily, this isn't a political only podcast. We just talk about MMA here mostly. So, hey, that's the end of it. Like and subscribe, like I said. Bring in your friends. Have them listen to all this nonsense. Really appreciate it. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. And I hope everybody has an amazing day.